Well, it's a pleasure for me to be on this program this morning. My name is Ramesh Vaswani. I'm from the 1965 batch. It is considered one of the two pioneering batches at IIT Madras. And I joined IIT Madras mainly because I was keen to do mechanical engineering. And the Germans have been known for many, many decades as the masters of this particular subject. So I was delighted when I was offered admission direct in the second year, because I had done my pre-engineering from Delhi Polytechnic in those days, now called the Delhi College of Engineering or the Institute of Technology, Delhi. And I was eligible for second year admission. I got in. We were a batch of 20. 19 of them were BScs. They had completed 3 years after school. And here I was a loner with 1 year after school. Anyway, so that is how I joined IIT Madras. Krishna Hostel in those days was under construction. Kaveri had been constructed. So we were offered rooms in Krishna Hostel. We had to share a room for several months before the rest of the wings got completed. And then we were given single rooms. These hostels became postgraduate hostels. So we had the privilege of living in large rooms and in a better hostel than the ones which came up later in front of our eyes. IIT Madras was a great experience. We had German professors as heads of department for almost all the disciplines. And the Germans taught us to be extremely thorough and extremely detailed and extremely disciplined in our approach to any problem solving or to any issue on any subject. So good memories of fantastic professors, the sylvan surroundings of IIT Madras, which I'm sure even today would be a treat for anybody living there. In those days were simply beautiful. We had deer crossing the road from the gate when we were coming in on our bikes or on our motorcycles. The deer would jump across the road. And the nearness of the Raj Bhavan gave us that beautiful, clean, green environment and pure air. So that is it about IIT Madras. I mean, I have so many interesting anecdotes about some fantastic professors who taught us not only the subject, but also kept us entertained. So, one professor I remember is Dr. D.V. Reddy, who taught us applied mechanics. He was a PhD from Urbana, University of Illinois, and he had an amazing method of teaching applied mechanics because he was extremely fond of literature and he would combine literature with applied mechanics. To give you an example, when he taught us resolution of forces in 3 planes, he drew these 3 planes, a cube, X, Y, and Z planes, and then drew curved arrows pointing to each plane, X, Y, and Z. So one of the students got up and asked him, Dr. Reddy, as engineers, we have been taught to draw straight arrows. Why are your arrows curved? So he turned his back and wrote on the board. He had a beautiful handwriting and he would write everything on the board. On this huge blackboard, he wrote, straight is the path of duty, curved is the line of beauty. Another incident I remember from Dr. D.V. Reddy is when he taught us the principles of optimum design. And he taught us that, one should stretch our design parameters to start using metals in their plastics range, not only in the elastic range. So To start this lecture series on optimum design, he wrote a poem on the board. And the poem read, "Have you heard of the wonderful one-horse shay?" Shay is an old English word for carriage. Have you heard of the wonderful one-horse shay, which ran 100 years to a day? And then all at once, it fell apart, nothing last, nothing first, just as bubbles do when they burst. and, and he wrote the name of the author, Oliver Wendell Holmes. And then he turned around and he says, "Gentlemen, that is the best example of optimum design. No part should outlast the other. They should all fail at once." So he was a great professor. Well, while I was at IIT, I was interviewed on the campus by a company which was the fifth largest company of India in those days, by the name of DCM. DCM had a senior management training scheme like all other companies had, Hindustan Lever, ICI, Metal Box, all these well-known companies of that time had management training schemes. So DCM came to the campus to interview, and I was shortlisted. But when I finished my engineering course, I came back home to Delhi in December 64. Two batches were turned out in 1964. We were accelerated batches because after the China war, the government of India decided that there is going to be a shortage of engineers. So they asked all engineering colleges across the country to accelerate two batches. We were deprived of our vacations for 2 years. We had no vacation. And we were pushed through. And so the batch before us, which is the actual 64 batch, graduated 3 months earlier. And we, the 65 batch, graduated 6 months earlier. So we finished in December 64. So when I came back to Delhi, by then IIT Delhi had opened. I went to IIT Delhi to meet an old professor of mine who had by then become the deputy head of the mechanical engineering department. He was delighted and he said, "What's your plan?" I said, "I've come back yesterday from Madras. It was a Saturday morning." So he said, no, Monday you come and join." So I said, "What do you mean Monday I come and join? I don't have my results. I have nothing." He said, no, I know your results. You come and join." So there and then I was issued an appointment letter as an associate lecturer at IIT Delhi. And Monday I was at work. Friday afternoon I returned from Madras. Monday I was at work. And I had the unique experience of taking applied mechanics tutorials for the final year batch of IIT Delhi, mechanical engineering, who were, as you might guess, a year younger to me, or maybe 1.5, 2 years younger to me. Anyway, so I was teaching at IIT Delhi for about 6 months under Dr. R.C. Malhotra, who later became director of IIT Kanpur. So it was a great experience, but then I was called by industry for an interview. DCM shortlisted me. They called me for the final rounds and I made it. We were only 3 people who were selected from that All India Contact program. And I was offered the job of a senior management trainee in DCM. And I don't mind saying it on this forum now, but if IIT Delhi in those days had a more academic atmosphere, I would have maybe refused this job from industry, because I have always been a topper. I topped at mechanical engineering at IIT Madras, and I enjoyed my teaching 6 months. But the atmosphere in those days at IIT Delhi was a little vitiated. and professors would spend time, lecturers would spend time in how to get more examinerships, how to get to Imperial College of Technology, London for higher education at the cost of IIT Delhi. So the focus was not on library work or on too much lab research. It was more on improving their personal profile. I got a little disillusioned as a young man, so I joined industry. I spent 15 years with DCM. First 2 years were training, third year was responsibility on the job. And fortunately for me, DCM in those days was a chemicals and textiles and process industry, India's fifth largest company. But they had a company in Hyderabad called Shriram Refrigeration, which was pure mechanical engineering. So they made me resign from DCM and joined Shriram Refrigeration. So I spent my first 4 years of actual profession were in the refrigeration industry. I dealt with hermetic compressors, with refrigeration systems design. We were the first company in India to manufacture hermetic compressors. So we started offering them to all the appliance manufacturers, the air conditioner, water cooler, refrigerator manufacturers. After 4 years, I moved to the Shriram Group in Delhi, where I was given responsibility of sales from applications development and manufacturing and product applications to sales. I was given all India responsibility. I traveled throughout the country, if you please, offering diesel pump sets to the rural masses and water coolers. So we set up service stations, we set up distributorships, and then came the opportunity to take over a Sikh company called Shriram Pistons. This company had German technology and a Swiss basic technology for making rings, German technology for pistons and piston pins. The company had become sick because of bad management. So the financial institutions approached my chairman, and I was part of a project group of 4 engineers who were taken out from the Shriram Group to turn around this Sikh company. I spent 8 years with Shriram Pistons. We turned it around. We got a lot of OE business, a lot of replacement market business. And then I moved on to a foreign assignment. I was offered managing director of 2 companies in Lagos, Nigeria, which were again sick. So I had by then become half a doctor of curing sick people. So as an engineer, I was told by this consultant in Bombay that, look, we want you to be interviewed by so-and-so Chelaram Group. And finally, I landed up in Lagos for 5 years, where I had the pleasure of turning around 2 Sikh companies. I came back to India because we couldn't settle abroad. Our elder son developed some health problems. So we decided to come back. And in Delhi, I joined hands with a friend of mine who was running a company called Inalsa. So I set up 2 new businesses at Inalsa. One in home appliances, small appliances for the home, for the kitchen basically. And then industrial product, we started manufacturing flexible stainless steel hoses, which were offered for process industry. They were being imported. The duty was 300%. So I brought in some technology from South Korea, and we started making flexible stainless steel hoses. The world leader was based out of UK, with factories in USA, UK, Germany, and branch offices all over the world. We made a product where we started competing with this UK world leader, and we started shipping out to UK. We sold product, we took coals to Newcastle, and that experience was tremendous. So I spent about 15 years with Inalsa till we sold both the businesses which I had set up. The major shareholder was a dear friend of mine who decided to get out of these businesses. So we sold both the businesses, and the hose business was sold to the market leader based out of UK. We first became joint venture partners, and then they bought us out. From there, I made a complete shift. I went to a Sikh software company. The chairman of this software company decided that he did not need a person with knowledge of software. He needed a person who knew how to handle business issues and how to handle a Sikh company. So my past experience of turning around Sikh companies and starting new businesses made me move to this software company in Noida, which in a matter of a year, we were able to revive. It was lying dormant. We got some business going. And then I wanted to open an office in the US, because in those days, all the software companies who were growing were getting business from the US. My chairman declined. He said, I'm sorry, I have no more funds, and I would not like to open an office in the US. You kindly focus on the domestic market. So I told him that I'm sorry, you're paying me good money, and I don't want your good money to go after bad. So I would rather leave and leave you to handle whatever I have been able to establish as a running organization. So I joined another appliance manufacturer who had a desire to bring in wireless transfer technology from Canada. So we spent a week in Calgary, and we brought in the most efficient wireless radios for data transfer. And we set up networks within Delhi and one in Assam and in some other places, whereby we were able to transfer data over long distances on wireless modems with towers. So these required line of sight. So that was a great experience. There were in those days, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there used to be internet service providers who were helping companies to transfer data from one location to another, absolutely secure and encrypted. So this business we did for about 3 or 4 years. And the person who brought this business to India, and I set it up for him, decided to step out of the business. So I moved the business from one group to another. And the group which took over the business is known as Intex. Intex Technologies took over the business of wireless modems, and I moved with the business to help the promoter grow his existing businesses and also continue the wireless business. So I spent about that was my last change. I spent about 12 years full-time with Intex, where we took the company from a turnover of 32 crores to 1,050 crores. And we diversified into a range of businesses, which included local manufacturing. For the first time, we set up in India a factory to make speakers, which we were importing from China, and UPS, and a few other items. This factory was set up in Jammu, and a second factory was set up in Himachal in a place called Baddi. So we got into local manufacturing with a view to what we call Atma Nirbhar today. We tried to become self-reliant in 2003.